Welcome back, everybody, to the Liquid Football Podcast. I'm joined by my fellow shiny head friends in Neil and Dave. Guys, it's as is often the case when we do these podcasts, a lot can happen in football. When we left just last, we were talking about the transfer window and this air of cautious optimism around Arsenal. And in one fell swoop, you've lost the title race, even though you're 3 points ahead and a game in hand, but you've still lost the title race.
Two ahead.
Two ahead. Well, that makes them. Yeah, well, you definitely lost the title race now. Like, you're not going to make up 5 points on Man City, even though you're ahead. Like, it's not going to happen. It just isn't. So well done, you fucked it up. But talk us through, actually, Neil. How do you feel Arsenal have lost the league this season?
Well, we've lost the league through a combination of things. The chief one being VAR referees not knowing how to do their fucking jobs, and going, oh yeah, just eyeballing offsides, despite the fact that their whole job is to use lines.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Lee Mason. This is the second time he's fucked us this season.
Well,
no, he's done now.
He's
Done now. So
yeah, he's done now. That's great.
His job is done. He's fucked Arsenal.
Yeah, that's it. His job is done. Yeah, Agent Mason. Watch as they put a statue up of him outside the fucking toilet bowl in the Seven Sisters Road. But so yeah, also playing like absolute dirt. I think a lot of our team is getting really, really fucking tired. Nketiah needs a rest. Although he's still doing a fine job. Martinelli needs a rest, but we have a replacement in him in Trossard, who is really going for it. Very happy with that signing. Yeah, it's just that squad depth that's starting to haunt us a wee bit. So that's it. I mean, we lost 1-0 to fucking Everton.
That was, to be fair, like that was to me a nice nostalgia throwback to the old Arsenal. Where, like, when you see a match and it's always the early kickoff, and as the rule always says, you never bet on the early kickoff. And it's Arsenal, high-flying Arsenal against struggling Everton. You know exactly what was going to happen. It was fucking...
Oh, yeah. They've changed their manager. They've changed the manager to Sean Dyche, who we fucking hate. And it's Everton, who we fucking hate. It's an early kickoff, which we fucking hate.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in pole position and cruising, which, if you're an Arsenal fan for any long period of time, you'll know we fucking hate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was all set up for us to fail. And fail we did. We failed in the worst possible way. From a set piece, straight from a corner, and
which is weird because you guys have been like really, really good at set pieces this season. So it was very
that's the thing. We've been fantastic
attacking and defending.
We've been fantastic at set pieces. Then we tried our level best to fuck it up against Villa recently, and then we got pumped by City as well. So that's 3-1.
I think that was really unfair scoreline, because I think, like, even in the first half, you really did give a good account of yourselves.
We
was
great in the first half.
The quality, yeah.
We're great in the first half, but the thing is, we just didn't put our chances away. Like, in particular, Nketiah's kind of flash header, which he put wide, and I was like, oh,
he should have scored. He had to score that.
That's my point. Or at the very least, get it on target. Like, if you get it on target, the keeper saves it, right, fine. That's cool. You can turn around and say, oh, well, he should be giving the keeper no chance there. I was like, oh, fuck off, mate, right? It's enough that he gets it on target. But no, hitting it wide, no. And it was one of those things where you look at it and you go, Jesus would have netted that.
Yeah.
He would have absolutely fucking netted that. So yeah, City continued to kind of, brum along at the pace. They're looking like they were looking like they might click into a run, that typical 16 match winning run that City usually click into. Thankfully, it was brought to a grinding halt by Chris Wood.
Do you know what? Here's
Neil,
the thing about this, right?
Here's a question for you, Neil. Since the North London derby, actually, since the beginning of January, right, you went on a run of decent clean sheets, 3 games in a row without conceding. Now you have 10 goals conceded since the middle of January. Where the fuck has that come from?
Oh, it's the squad depth issues are kicking in.
It's losing Partey, really, isn't it? Like, it's
Partey, yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even losing Partey. Like prior to this season, Partey had only been available for 52% of the minutes since we've
But
signed
you don't
him.
have a natural kind of
We've absolutely no
replacement.
backup. We've no backup really whatsoever for him. Vieira doesn't really play in the same area. He plays more attacking.
And
In
El
fact, if
Neni was
anything,
injured as well, so he couldn't
El
rely on
Neni,
him.
and then El Neni got
Yeah.
injured. Hence why the mad dash for Caicedo and why like we're pretty much like sowing the seeds for a harvest of rice come the summer. Um, yeah, so signing the second most talented Irishman in the league in the summer will help us out definitely, but uh,
You're
it's
not
not
wrong.
going to help us now.
No.
So that's just the thing. Like we've lost Partey. Fuck knows for how long. We've no real cover for him. And again, it's squad depth issues. I mean, like Smith Rowe again was on the bench after recovering from a recurring groin injury. He's not played since the start of the season. You know, if we'd have had him, like we just can't rest anybody.
But at
You
the
know?
beginning of January, Arsenal, Newcastle, Oxford, Spurs were all clean sheets.
Yeah.
You still didn't have Smith Rowe.
Oh no, yeah, but it's bound. Like the fatigue builds up.
Eventually does. The levels do drop after, like, especially with how truncated everything is when you're playing 2 games a week essentially, and at the level at the speed that Arsenal need to play at, because they need to play at that speed, or else their tactics kind of fall apart.
Absolutely.
But what Everton showed was that I don't know if any other teams are going to do this, because Arsenal are actually quite good at keeping the tempo fast. But if Everton can prove that you can slow down Arsenal, you kind of basically get them in a quicksand situation.
Every team is trying. Like you only need to take a look at the Villa fucking game and what Newcastle did.
Yeah,
as well. Like it's just like they're all trying to slow it down. Like Villa are slowing it down by having Emi Martinez hold on to it for 27 years. And that's just it, which was fucking brilliant when he was the result of the 2 goals that we scored in the extra time that his shithouse rebuilt up. Which is just mwah, that's fucking chef's kiss karma right there. So yeah, it's just everybody's getting tired, you know. Everybody's getting
lazy. But can we all just bask in the glow of the theatre that is Newcastle? They have not got Nick Pope for the final. Dubravka's cup tied. And they have to go with the one player who's not started a single game for them in Loris Karius. Well, honestly, it's hilarious. And
did it not have Gillespie?
They have Mark Gillespie there, as you will know, Dave, former Motherwell goalkeeper Mark Gillespie. I mean, how could you forget him, Dave? Come on,
hasn't he played he's played a professional game more recently than Karius has?
Yeah. Well, if you count Motherwell as a professional game, let's be fair. Let's be delicate about this.
At the minute, no, not really. No. I mean, well, to be fair, they just beat Hearts, but again, they've brought in Stuart Kettlewell, who seems to be steadying the ship a little bit. But the third manager this season, they'll stay up, but I think everyone Scottish football wants them to go down.
Yeah,
just because they've been absolute
for a few teams in the SPL, really. Yeah, but on that point about Newcastle, again, they kind of feel this in a kind of conundrum, but the best conundrum is Dubravka himself, because either whatever happened in that final, he wins a medal, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, he goes into that game going, I'm cup tied, sure, but I'm signed to Newcastle. Yeah, I could win a medal with Man United.
Yeah.
So he's in a win-win. It doesn't matter. He gets a medal either way.
Yeah, he's cup tied. He's cup tied to the other team. He's cup tied to the other fucking team in the tie, in the final. He's like, yeah.
I mean, I love it. He's sitting there with a big smile on his face going, I don't give a fuck who wins. I have a League Cup winners medal coming to me in the post anyway.
Absolutely, man. You know, that's
he's clearly not going to get it in the ceremony unless he does a John Terry, just a big change back to his old
seriously, could you imagine if Man United won that and he ended up on the fucking podium?
In his Newcastle gear.
In his just in his casuals, well, I did play, I won the trophy. Sorry, Toon Arby.
He's there celebrating in the Toon fucking dressing room, going, hey, and everyone's just deathly going. He's just staring holes at him,
Yeah, he's actually he goes from like the United dressing room into the Newcastle. He's like, lads, it's a serious party going on today. You got to check it out. Like, come on, they even give me a medal.
They've got some spares kicking about. You know what I mean?
We're doing shots out of the fucking trophy. Come on.
But like, but I suppose it is a good time to talk about Newcastle because we haven't really spoken about Newcastle over the course of the podcast, and they like this is probably the bad time to talk about it now, considering they're now somehow dropped out of the top four, considering their how good they've been defensively. But we haven't spoken about how well they've done this season. They've kind of slept under the radar a little bit, considering as well, like the presumption would be that they have kind of bought their way up the league, where it's not necessarily the case. No. Considering
they haven't bought their way up the league, but the money has definitely played a part. You know, these players would not have played like this. Like these players are playing for their paycheck, basically. You know,
yes.
they now no longer want to leave Newcastle because it's where the money is at now, and they know, oh well, I put in a deadly season, potentially win a cup. You know, even if it is the Milk Cup. You know, I'm like, these guys are going to toss money at me like covering fire on a beachhead assault. I'm loving it, you know. So they're playing this way because of the money. Yes, that's true. He's not bought in shitloads of players, although there's probably not for the want of trying. And they're probably going to splurge in the summer. Like they're probably going to go all fucking out.
It does seem that they're kind of waiting to justify a big
spend.
Does
seem like, yeah, there's very much a semblance this January of keeping the powder dry for the summer.
Yeah.
But like, it's to say that the buyout, the takeover, the limitless funds, like to say that hasn't had any kind of effect is pretty churlish. Yeah, none of that money's on the pitch yet. But to say that it's not had an effect, no, I don't get that logic. I don't see that. I see this money as having a direct effect on it all. You know, I mean, like, that's how they were able to get Eddie Howe. Like, just say, here, right, have a season. You know, we can, you know, with the training wheels on, do what you want. He's doing far better than they thought he would. And then in the summer, you get your splurge, and then we'll start holding your feet to the coals if, you know, the results don't start working out.
Thing is, like, they want, like, okay, Newcastle United, their whole aim of the new owners and Eddie Howe is to get into Europe. Let's face it. This season, I think they'll get into Europe regardless, whether it's Conference League, Europa League, Champions League.
Yeah, they definitely will. I mean,
they will. They'll definitely get into Europe. However,
like, they've only lost twice. I mean, like, that Liverpool loss was their second loss of the season. Like, that's
we're literally the only team to beat Newcastle this season.
Yeah,
outside of, say, Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup. And
you beat them. Yeah, you the other league lost to it.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Right. So both those losses are to Liverpool.
Yeah. And you can identify Newcastle as probably our biggest rival now for the Champions League.
Which is frustrating for Newcastle, because they look at it going, we've lost to Liverpool, a team below us, for a start.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the why? You know, how have we done this? It's probably really frustrating for Eddie Howe. Hello. It's probably really frustrating for Eddie Howe. Like, it's
but
why have we lost to this team who's below us doing absolutely terrible, but we can beat the likes of, you know,
first
Leicester,
off,
you know, drew to Arsenal, beat Leicester again, beat Bournemouth. They've beat every team around them apart from Liverpool.
Well, it helped because when Liverpool come to town, their goalkeeper forgets that he can't handle the ball outside the fucking box. That always helps.
No, in fairness, that was a contentious red card deal. I mean,
that was a contentious red card.
It was a contentious red card deal, you know.
Like, Eddie Howe has been slowly eroding the respect I had from. You probably won't give too much of a fuck about that, but like, his refusal to kind of talk on the topic of the takeover and all that shite, his refusal to really engage with any of it. But like, the shite he was spouting after the fucking Liverpool match was, oh, I thought that was a harsh red card. It's like, you fucking serious? Your goalkeeper steams out of the box, dives and handles a ball, denying a clear goal scoring opportunity. Like, yeah, there is like a Newcastle defender there, kind of there, but he's not got the block in the goal, and he's not going to catch fucking Mohamed Salah, who's already at like sixth gear. He's hit the afterburners. That's why he's going for the ball. And I was looking at it, I was like, are you fucking like there's talk that they might appeal it, like and I was going like,
Well, they might appeal it, and that's the reason they'll appeal is because it'll delay his suspension
yeah,
for a game.
if
That they
they
will,
yeah
I think the like appealing it makes sense, even if it sounds stupid, but it's purely games and shit to get Pope into the
yeah
final, and that does make sense in
yeah.
fairness.
So if when they appeal it and when they fail the appeal, he gets an extra match ban, doesn't he?
Yes, but again, if it means he's in for the cup final, that might be actually worth it in a
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
way. That of course presumes if they actually win the fucking match. If they don't, then they look a bit silly. Then
That's true.
you know.
Just to kind of pick up on what Dave was talking about there, when you were saying that Newcastle fans might be frustrated by losing to Liverpool, I don't know, but I think they might be frustrated at no longer being in the top four. Being knocked out of the top four by an incredibly mediocre Spurs team, and it's because they're not winning games. Like, yeah, they've only
They've drawn a
lost.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've drawn
they
11,
have.
joint highest amount in the league. The only other team that have drawn the same amount is Brentford. Brentford have drawn 11 as well. They've drawn 11 fucking games. 10 wins, 11 draws, and 2 losses.
Their away form is better than their home.
Yeah.
Their home form, they're 7th, and away they're top 4 still. So their away form is much better than their home form.
Exactly.
That's just down to how defensive they are. Like they're very well drilled in that sense, And they could also probably point to the fact that like attackers wise, they haven't had all of them available. Like they've missed. I think that only recently have they actually had all their front players available, and now suddenly they've no midfielders because Gamares is suspended and Almiron is a doubt and so forth. So like they haven't been full beans all season. But then again, you could say that about most of the league, realistically speaking.
Yeah, look, you can say that, but then you can also turn around and go, well, yeah, injuries are part and parcel to this game. Like
exactly, yeah.
You have to get like ridiculously lucky to not have your fucking starting 15 somewhat available to you at some point. Like it's that's not, you can't bank on that. That's not going to happen. So don't bank on it.
So in terms of because we mentioned the cup final and seeing that it is this coming weekend, do we think Newcastle can beat United then?
No, not a chance.
No.
Okay.
As much as it pains me to fuckers, I know. I mean this like as much as it burns away at my soul to say this, I cannot see them either holding a lead against Man United or scoring enough goals to beat Man United, because you know what's going to happen. The last 6 or 7 games, Rashford will pop up and nick a goal. And then that's it. They'll shut up shop there because they'll know for a fact we've got a goal. Newcastle won't get past their defense, even though that's questionable by a lot of people. Oh, of course they will. The United defense is shy. No, it's been consistent. They've shipped goals, sure, but they've not shipped like 3-4 goals in a game. You know what I mean? In 2023, that is. So I don't know. They seem to be finding their feet under Ten Hag, and that's not good in my book.
He's just finally getting performances out of players. That's a difference.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
And that's what they've been missing. You know,
we've been chatting about this on our WhatsApp for the last couple of months or so. But when you asked, are they going to win? Are Newcastle going to win? And we said no. I said I've got 2 words as to why they won't win, and they are Marcus Rashford, who is reborn as this fucking pinnacle wide attacker that I've just not seen before.
Look, they're still in contention for the league. This is the scary part. Like people are focusing on Arsenal and City and all this. Nobody's paying attention to the fact that United are only 5 points off.
Yeah, they're 5 off.
They're 3 points off of Arsenal, right? And they've played the same amount of games as City. 3 points off City. They played the same amount of games. They're not in hand or behind or anything like that.
Well, not on City. They
have a game. Obviously, Arsenal have a game in hand, but they're still in contention for the league. Like people that are not. I think they really are slipping on the radar because nobody's talking about United to win the league, which I would have thought they would have been given the points tally they have. But I think it's a very real possibility if they keep playing the way they're playing that you're going to look at another United title this year for the first time in so long.
It really factors for me. It definitely depends on how they do Europa League wise because they had to go through the proverbial, as we call it, the drip tray playoff where they had to play. They had these 2. Like in fairness, the game against Barcelona was brilliant, but to sustain that level of intensity twice in the week and then playing the league. Now, again, against Leicester, they were great, but that could be down to Leicester being quite poor as well.
Brendan Rodgers has always been like that against United, though.
Yeah, like Brendan's teams have always been soft touches, in fairness, but yeah, and in the aspect of United, like eventually those games, as we've learned from other clubs this season, those games do catch up on you, especially in a truncated way. So they will have slumps and so forth. But as absurd as it sounds, losing against Barcelona, and losing that tie benefits United domestically.
It's the fact that it goes against everything we've spoke about in regards to United over the past 6 or 7 years. Anyone's spoken about the fact that he was able to beat Leicester after drawing with Barcelona, with a team that included Diogo Dalot, who hasn't fucking done anything since he was signed. Victor Lindelof, who was written off last season as being sold off to whoever, Barcelona or whatever, never went.
Yeah.
Fred, who's always been panned by every United fan you speak to. And then you have the likes of Wout Weghorst in front, who we wrote off, in the transfer window, going, that's stupid, weird, and a very strange signing. He's doing this work with a squad that, personally, I think Sabitzer's proven me wrong as far as signings go.
Yeah, Sabitzer looks the business.
Yeah, so I mean, they're achieving all of this with. He's achieving this with half a squad of what even United fans would call rejects.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And that's the scary part. He's not even got his full strength or full squad that he knows he wants to bring in.
Yeah,
and that's the scary part, is he's doing this with a half a squad that even United fans will write off, and that's why I think nobody's paying attention to them in regards to league contention. But I think they're well in the mix. Like they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
It really depends on how, again, and like I said, like they can look after themselves as well in terms of their own momentum. But it does really depend on how Arsenal and City get on as well. Because as we mentioned, because Arsenal have like Thursday night commitments as well, and it depends on how long they go. I can't remember who you guys have in the Europa League again. Sure, you won't know until the drip tray
next round. Yeah,
we won't know until the drip tray has been drained out.
Yeah, so that depends. So you never know how that tie comes out, because again, there's a lot of big clubs come out from there. But you've also got on the opposite side, you got Man City, who, like, realistically speaking, considering the rest of the clubs around Europe, this is their best chance to win the Champions League in a long time. But, like, realistically, can you say, like, going by how they're playing, are they favorites for it? Like, you've
not a chance.
There's very few clubs you could actually say, you can put your hat on and say they could win the league, that competition this year. I know who I'd like to win personally, but that's a separate issue.
I mean, look at it. If this is one of those seasons where, I genuinely feel Napoli have a shot.
They do. That's who I think it is going to be.
Napoli are steamrolling everybody. Like, they're absolutely fucking killing it. Particularly when you consider the fucking morass that Serie A is currently right now. Like, we're going to be talking about these repercussions, I think, for the next year or so. I don't think this is fully cleared its throat. I think there's going to be more down the line, and it's going to be even worse. Like, it is fucking downhill from here for the Serie A, I reckon. So, like, if it wasn't for Napoli, like, there'd be literally nothing good to say about Italian football this season.
The good thing they can sit on is that no matter how bad Italian football gets, it's still 5 to 6 times better than what's going on in Spain, which is just your child could shit better than what I'm looking at on the television in La Liga.
But that's the thing. Like it's what happens when you have a stranglehold of 3 teams in the league. At least you can say the money injected into the Premier League, or the fact that, like, the big boats have kind of sunk to where the rest of them are in Italy. It's all kind of balanced out. It's allowing the likes of Milan's and Napoli to challenge, but Juventus have been so complacent. It's purely the fact that, like, it's gone so big and bloated that it's weighed them down. Whereas with Barcelona and Real Madrid, obviously they're, like, trying to essentially emotionally blackmail the league into keeping them alive. Like, Real, not so much Barcelona, but Barcelona certainly have got skeletons in the closet, and they're all coming out one by one. And as you said about scandals, Neil, Jesus, like, we can talk on for hours on the scandals of the last few weeks. But well, actually, do you know what? Let's do that. Fuck it, we might as well, because we're here. We're here and we're ready to give out. So, the one I wanted to talk about, because it's come up in conversation privately as well, is the Man City situation. It feels like a long time ago, but it was last week.
It does. To be fair, no, it does. You're right, because it's not. The reason it does is because it's not the first time it's come up.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's second or third. I think it's come up. So
we have essentially the third time, really, because we will have the UEFA investigation that was relatively narrow compared to what the Premier League have been doing, but this is like again like the gifts of mild shock doesn't really do this justice in terms of like Manchester City with financial irregularities color me surprised, but I think the trouble is that it opens up a very weird discourse for me in that people kind of like obviously not surprised by this, but then also are encouraging their own clubs to try and fight the same battle. It's like, no, they don't have a situation of like, if you can't beat them, join them. This is like, no, this is just equally as evil. You don't like, you don't set the culture by essentially doing stuff on the slide. Like, don't like, let's be fair, most clubs probably do find ways to circumvent the rules. Very few do live within the means. And if they are, they're the likes of a Brentford or a Brighton. But there's a big difference between having a state intervening with a club and essentially bastardizing a club to be in their own image. So the fact that like the Premier League over the 4 years has found 115 financial breaches, that's not something you can wipe under with a court of appeal. That's significant.
No, it's frustrating because we all know what's going to happen, and it's frustrating from a point that we've seen Chelsea suffer from financial irregularities, whether it was Abramovich or whatever, sanctions, and Chelsea were not allowed to. They had a transfer embargo put on them, and all sorts of stuff.
That was due to their excessive loan farm system, wasn't it?
But nonetheless, it was a lot less than what City are being charged with, or what the financial irregularities. But they'll walk away from it clean. I guarantee you, nothing will happen to them. Nothing will happen to the club.
Yeah, I know with the Chelsea one, as I recall, it was just down to one particular transfer being overinflated. It was kind of like how Juventus have been stung with it now with but Juventus was doing it culturally, as in all their deals were being inflated in order to make the loan to basically like benefit the small club by taking whatever they want from them. Whereas with Chelsea, I think it was like Marco Marin's deal, I think it was, and he never played a game for them. But like the fee was overinflated, and obviously they cooked the books in that sense. But like you said, he got a transfer ban. The difference was with Chelsea is that it coincided with the golden generation of their academy with Mount and Abraham and Tomori. They didn't fucking need like a transfer window. They had the transfer window in Cobham, But I do have the same fear as Dave though, in that we have been down this road before, and Manchester City seem to enjoy having these kind of legal battles.
The spotlight's on them. People are talking about them. It's in the news. They're everywhere. To them, no publicity is bad. No publicity is bad publicity to them, as long as their name is out there in the front pages.
But it's even that, like, it's also such a weird battle to fight because, like, I was going to have a discussion about how we've always mentioned this about Pep Guardiola, where I think he almost has a psychosocial relationship with football, in that he needs to be loved. He needs to have this kind of deifying presence in terms of how he makes football. Because again, like he studied under the tree that is Johan Cruyff. So Cruyff is always seen as this kind of like massive arm of how football should be made and this kind of purity of it. And Guardiola, I think, feels like he needs to surpass that. But in order to surpass that, it's easy to be a philosopher when you're working in paradise. When you're in Barcelona, when they're at the height of financial success, and you're in Bayern Munich, where you essentially have a chokehold on your domestic league, it's very easy to sit there and make the best team possible. And now he comes to Manchester City, where he's got access to infinite money, the best players, the best academy, the best facilities, and he makes the best football. And then this kind of also like absorbs into Man City themselves, because there's also people in the clubs that's going, why doesn't anybody like us? We're making the best football. We have the best team. Why isn't anyone laughing? Why are you booing? We're right. It's like, you're not though, because you're doing this by pumping massive amounts of money. You're doing it to curry favor in a deprived area of Manchester. So you've developed the area. That's absolutely fantastic. Good for Manchester, of course. But you're not doing it for the good of the city. You're doing it to be loved. You're doing it for a favor.
That is how they're going to avoid anything going wrong with the current financial situation. They'll turn around and go, okay, we've done this, 150, whatever charges it is. We've done wrong. We recognize it, but we'll commit to investing in underprivileged kids in Manchester, or funding social care through the club's charities or the club's community partnerships. And that's how they'll get away with it, because they'll compromise with whoever's, investigating and charging them with these financial irregularities. They'll turn around and go, well, we'll invest, say, 20 million in the kids' football, or for those kids who can't afford to play football and all this, which is great, but it's still a smokescreen to get away with what they've actually done. I have a feeling that's how they're going to go about it. They'll commit to a certain amount of funds for these community projects and all this, stuff around Manchester, and they'll just go, okay, that's a fair agreement. Let's do that.
I don't think so. And here is why. I'm like, normally I would be like horrendously skeptical. I mean, if history is any indicator, incredibly rich people being held to account for their actions doesn't exactly work out well for justice. But I think that's the reason why the Premier League have gone about it the way that they have, in order to kind of they've deliberately painted themselves into a corner. They have to do something about this. So this is the Premier League, one of the more timid, money beholden organizations in the world. And they're basically publicly accusing their most moneyed and recently successful club of over 100 breaches of its financial records going back about a decade. And that's the thing, like, this can't just go away. Like, this can't just be swept under the rug. The rest of the league as well will not allow it, because the Premier League head is made up of all the other clubs as well as a board.
Do you not think it'll just be a hefty fine?
No, I don't think so. We can't find a club with infinite money. There's literally no point in doing that.
There's
no
that's
point.
The proverbial slap on the wrist,
That's my point.
Yeah.
They've set it up. They've done it in such a way so that they can't allow City cannot just get away with this. They've also done it in a way because they've done it this way publicly, in order to counteract City's other tactic, which, as you said, you've mentioned one of City's tactics there. All right, then, you got me, copper.
Let's do 1,000 a million's worth of
let me make a donation to the Cops, Widows and Orphans Fund, that type of thing, right? That's one of their other tactic is stalling, right? And they're world-class masters at it.
Litigation up the arse, like, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's how they got away with the previous UEFA ban thing, because when they appealed it to CAS threw out most of the charges because they were all time barred, because City had dragged on the investigations for so long that the statute of limitations on the charges had elapsed and they couldn't be charged with them anymore.
They just held out the courts.
Yeah, and then at the end, they pled guilty to obstruction, which is the one thing they publicly said they weren't doing, and took the fine. The fine was like 40 million, and it got reduced to 9 on appeal, and they went, do you accept cash?
Can I revolute you some millions?
I'll revolute it to a Mr. S. Blatter. Was it asking me for Swiss francs all of a sudden? So, like, it's just those are the two main City tactics: stalling and you got me, capper. But I think the reason why the Premier League have done it in the way that they've done it is to avoid that. It can't drag on, because the longer this drags on, the more it devalues their product, which is the league. The more I'm like, I'm like, from here on in, let's say City win the league, right? Which is, by the way, that's still a high chance. It's almost 50% depending on what odds maker you're looking at. And then they get charged. Like, how much is that going to devalue the league? How much is that league win going to be worth? Like, in the eyes of everybody else, like, hang on, they're under investigation for over 100 breaches of your financial fair play laws, and they've won your league. Like, how is that worth anything? That's worthless. You've devalued your own product, and that's my point. They can't sell it anymore. They will be able to sell it at a far lower price if the longer this shit goes on. So City can't drag this out. They also can't appeal because CAS have no jurisdiction here.
And there's no time barring on Premier League.
And there's no time barring on any of these fucking issues. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely correct. So I think they've done it in a way to kind of to sort of like light a fire under their own arses.
Yeah.
And paint themselves into a corner going, oh, well, we've gone, done it now. We got to do something. They can't just let this go under the rug. The rest of the league won't let them because the rest of the league all know fucking City are guilty. Everybody fucking does.
Well, that's the grand irony of all this, because as you mentioned, the Premier League is basically a collection of vested interests between hyper capitalists, venture capitalists, and states and everyone else. So there's two massive ones going in, which is the clubs themselves. Like there's going to be 19 clubs that are going to go, let's throw these fuckers out of the league. Because similarly, there were 7 teams who voted that Man City should be kicked out of Europe. One of them was Liverpool. Then it was United, obviously. The likes of Wolves and Newcastle got called out in a fucking like Jake Paul-esque fucking press conference by Pep Guardiola going like, yeah, oh, we're going to get them. Oh, we're going to get revenge. Oh, you're all against us. It's like, yeah, okay, siege mentality doesn't really work when you're backed by a state, Pep. But you know, you do you, fam, you know. Well, the difference is, but the other vested interest is that the Premier League now has to be seen to police this.
Exactly.
Because
because
the government have their one thing the Tories are actually trying to do for sport, which is presumably to, like, you know, get more votes. God love them. Because they fucking need them. Is the white paper they supposedly on reform in sport and in football. This is coming from Tracy Crouch, the sports minister, or whichever one. Anyway, the point is, that was supposed to be published on the Wednesday, and it got pushed back. And convenient enough, then the Manchester City charges the news of that develops the day beforehand of all this happening. So I think Neil's right in saying that the timing was very intentional. So the Premier League is shown to be taking proactive action against what is very clearly a financial mire in Manchester City, you know. And again, it shows it tells me the morbidity of the whole thing, where one of the banners at the Etihad was about the fucking barrister that hired about this. It's like, you tragic bastards. Like, name me one club who's ever made a banner of their lawyer. Like, Liverpool have a weird fan base. We've got weird fan cams and all that. We never done about fucking Mike Hogan.
About their lawyer, though. I mean, it was the saddest
Ian
looking
Eyre
thing
never got his fucking fan club. Go away with this.
By the way, thank Christ he had such a fucking memeable surname. You know, if his second name hadn't been Panic, fuck knows what they would have done. You know, they would have really had to contort their brains. Thankfully, you made it easy for them by having such a memeable surname. But and it's not just in the league. It's not just in the Premier League as well that clubs are the vested interest in seeing the Premier League actually, you know, hold up their rules. You go across Europe as well. Javier Tebas in La Liga has been banging the fucking anti-City drum for fucking years. He's horrified at what they're doing over here. Well, over there, yeah, still over there. But he's horrified. He's been spitting blood about this for fucking at least 3 years, you know? And you know, it's crazy. You know, it really is. Yeah. He was on wasn't he? No, he wasn't on the cast panel for that or something like that. There was a City meme where they made up a panel of their biggest detractors as part of the CAS arbitration panel, and Javier Tebas was on it. He was Kermit the Frog. So because they wrote the Muppet Show, it was called the Muppet Show. Yeah. So
again, it says a lot about the fan base when they're taking high fives over. Again, it's just like when FIFA made the movie about the admins of football. It's lads, you aren't the heroes. You know, you're the ones that are banging the drum about heroes of company and Aguero winning seasons for you. It's not your lawyers. Although technically correct, it is probably your lawyers in the end that are saving the club. But you don't draw attention to it. You know, leave that to the dark arts like everyone else. You know.
Yeah. So it's just I share Dave's horrendous pessimism about wealthy people being brought to justice for whatever their crimes. I really, really do. But I am saying that this is somewhat different in that if indeed what we say happens actually happens, if the City do get away with this, if the Premier League do let them get away with this slap on the wrist, it'll be fucking anarchy. You'll actually, in fact, the Super League might actually happen in that case.
Yeah, it would.
You will have the Premier League team. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. UEFA are already in the process of that, and this is why I'm going to give up on the Champions League in about 2 years' time, because they're putting it into a league system.
Yeah, the Swiss model,
European competitions are going to be in a league fucking system, which I have no interest in. I'm not going to watch it. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
because
lie. Like it's a
it's way
fucking
too much. It's too much more Champions League. Like Champions League matches are meant to be special, and they've got 8 matches. Like the one thing I know, even from like even looking at that system, is that you're taking away one of the greatest joys of a football fan season, and that's the group stage draws. Like how could you take the best thing about the Champions League? It's the group
Yeah,
stages. Like
the
the away
group
trips, you don't
draws,
know
yeah.
now. It's all automated. It's like it's
just a
all
league. It's
coefficient.
just a 20-team league,
36,
36
isn't it?
team
36? Yeah.
league of teams.
And you basically play 8 like set 8 random games in that 36. Yeah, and that's the same for the Europa League and the Conference League. It's all the same formula. It's like
I've
that.
no interest in it. I literally have zero interest in it.
But that's the
they've
thing. That's seen as a
killed
halfway to
anything.
stop these clubs from breaking away. Like this, it's basically giving them what they want under the guise of the Champions
But
League.
back to City, like the investigation's gone on for 4 years already, right? So we're already 4 years deep on this.
Oh no, isn't the investigation over? Like, isn't that it? That's it for the investigation.
It is.
This is from the findings of that investigation.
Yeah, but that's been
so, like,
4 years of an investigation, right?
Yeah.
You got the findings, you got the charges. Now, how many years down the line is it going to be? Regardless, I know there's no time.
There's no statute.
There's no time bar for the Premier League. The UEFA ones maybe, Premier League not so much. So I mean, how long are they going to drag it? Like if they know there's no time restrictions, they could just drag it out. They could just litigate it to fuck. And
but that's the difference between having a league of 20 clubs, because the other 19 clubs are going, where's the fucking investigation?
Yeah,
you've also now got the government also going, where's the investigation?
That's my point as well. Doing this so publicly means that the longer this goes on, the worse it looks for the league. So they have to crack the whip on this. Yeah. You know, this is devaluing the league as the longer it goes
as a brand.
on. It's devaluing the brand. It's devaluing everything in it.
Yeah.
Around it. So like, and again, like, see, I think they're kind of they're also thinking the opposite side, and that City won't want this cloud hanging over them. Like I think they're banking on people seeing the City stalling tactics as just that, whereas people didn't with the UEFA charges until City turned around and went, okay, we'll plead guilty to obstruction, because as I said, that was the one thing they said they were not doing the whole entire time. They were going, we've presented wealth of evidence, they're just ignoring it. We've provided all the evidence, they're just ignoring it. The campaign to smear our club is, widely known and recognized. Obstruction, plead guilty. It's like, what?
Well, even if they have a points deduction, it'll only count for the season that's given. So even if
the points deduction won't be enough, it really won't be enough. Like I said, there's no point given.
This team, they want them relegated.
Oh yeah, they want relegation. That's the thing. Like that's the point. And the Premier League have surprisingly free reign in how they punish the team. They can it's literally anything they decide. So, but this is my point. I don't see, like, I was in a taxi the other day and they had a lawyer on the some RTE channel had a lawyer on the radio, and he's saying this could go on for 5 years. And I was like, they can't let it go on for that long. They cannot. Like, if this went on, like, if we're still talking about this in 4 years' time, the Premier League are going to look like a fucking joke.
This is the difference. Every league title is going to have it's going to be like, well, like again, you mentioned even the investigation was 4 years. I was coming back all the way to 2009 when they took over, and all the deals in between, the Mancini stuff. Like that's a Pandora's box in of itself, because Mancini at those stages was going to go, what are you going to do?
Sure, that was even recognized. That was even recognized at the time. I remember Pep Guardiola being asked about where he was being paid from, and he went fucking mental in one of the press conferences. He's like, "What are you talking? What do you mean I'm being paid? Where am I being paid from? How am I being paid? Why do you ask me these questions?" And I'm like, we knew back then that they were paying Mancini with like other hands,
But and that's the difference, you see. Like it's a case of that, and like and again, if Manchester City win the Champions League, then every big club who feel they have a divine right to win the Champions League, if PSG, well, not PSG now this year, that's not going to happen. But if Munich gone to the final, Munich's going to go, "Hi, Bayern Munich here. Can we have a look at the kind of the mechanics of the Haaland deal? You know, the one where they triggered the release clause, but Alf Ingi got 20 million just out of nowhere. Can we just have a look at the ledger for that, if that's all right?"
Oh, you mean the fact that they said they paid 56 million for him when in actual reality they paid 180?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. That isn't even within the window of that investigation. That's one in and of its own right.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like the third party ownerships they have for the Brazilian and Argentine players that they get down on the sly.
But Barcelona have been doing that for decades.
They have, absolutely.
PSG, the PSG did it for the Neymar.
Third party rights ruin football.
Yes.
For me personally, but it's common.
But the Premier League don't have rules on it, so that's one thing they will say. But again, people will start asking the questions, and again, it's not the people, it's clubs, and clubs are the ones that have to. At least in the Premier League, much of the point where we're talking about vested interest, the league as an authority figure doesn't have any power, but the clubs do. 19 clubs are there because again, you can look at if someone like say, okay, let's look at Newcastle, right? They had to jump through so many hoops to get this Saudi ownership kind of across the line, and the reason was because they already let Man City in, and Man City said we don't want to let anyone else more in. We don't want to have one of our rivals from the spring joining us here in this competition, and they'll do the same if United go through with the Qatari bid. If that goes through, there's going to be the same number of hoops jump through as well. To the point where if you let Man City away with this, what's stopping any club taking on state ownership? What's stopping any club taking on as many foreign investors as they want? Because they'll point to Man City and said, you let them do it. What difference does it make if Manchester United want to be owned by the Qataris? If fucking Brighton sell up to the Kuwaiti royal family? These are all theoretically possible. And
also it's also the tactics that City have used to inflate their earnings.
Yes.
If the league don't nail them for it, the law is all about precedent. If the league don't nail them for what they're doing, then everybody can do what they did.
And
we need an Enron style collapse of Man City at this point.
They won't. They're state backed.
But I mean, not an Enron collapses. That's what Enron did, is inflate earnings. But like the thing is, if they get relegated, right? For example, it's no longer the Premier League's problem. It's the EFL's problem because
the EFL are not obliged to put them in the Championship.
No,
they can put them in League Two. They're entitled to that.
I mean, the EFL are a completely different entity and a more strict entity than the
more
Premier League.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they get relegated, which still I know it's pessimistic of me to say, I can't see it happen. However, if they were to be relegated, the Premier League's positive and all of that is bye. We don't have to deal with you anymore. Now you're the EFL's problem.
Well, here's a thought, Dave, right? And you remember this, being a Scottish football man yourself, when Rangers had their trouble back in the day with the fraud Ted finances, as we call it, and everything else in between, and how dodgy that was. What would you have even dreamed that Rangers would have been relegated from the SPL? Again, going by the point on the Rangers argument was that we enrich the league, we make it competitive, we make whatever it is.
We enrich the league via sectarianism, violence.
Yes, well, that would be their argument. They're the biggest in a wrestling sense. They're one of the biggest draws. So
you
can't relegate us. You can't take us out of the league.
However, they went bust. That's different.
Yeah,
that is different. But they had tried to lobby against relegation.
True, they did. Yeah. However, you can't have a team that's just gone bust remain where they are. They went shop down to League Two, but because the SPFL runs all four divisions, they put them down to League Two, right? The thing that annoyed me about Rangers was they basically went insolvent, set up a new company, a new name, transferred all their assets over.
Yeah.
That should not have been allowed. And I'm not saying that as I hate Rangers thing. No, I mean, anything that Rangers done pre-2012 should be of another entity. All those league titles should be theirs. All the trophies should be the previous club's entity. The new club should be a clean slate.
Like how Wimbledon became MK Dons.
Clean slate. No trophies, no nothing. But they were allowed to keep the stadium. They were allowed to keep all the trophies and history and records. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So if City were relegated, which, City have all the money in the world, Rangers went bust. But if City were relegated, I would welcome it as like Neil was saying, a statement of the Premier League to say nobody can financially manipulate this league.
Particularly what they got the Saudis and the Qataris potentially getting in on the league. And basically the Premier League probably will use City as a kind of, we are not like a carcass for you to feed on.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, Newcastle City is going to become a derby in itself because it's going to be the Middle Eastern showdown. You're going to have Qatar versus Saudi Arabia. That's kind of how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But
and this is also my argument against this. A Manchester's derby, hypothetically, should not be a battle between states. and this has always been the case. Like this, whenever
Nope.
the Super League came around, and they started lobbying hard against the venture capitalists that own the club. It's like, lads, if you only realize now that you're owned by venture capitalists, I mean, hello, welcome to 2022. But the difference is that they lobbied, and the biggest point against that, many of the pundits, because again they had their own vested interest, they didn't want to lose the Premier League, all this sort of stuff. But many of the TV pundits said the exact same thing: is that these guys are just custodians of a club whose histories and cultures are much more intertwined with the cities and the people within it than they ever will be. You can't buy, you can buy players, you can buy cups, you can buy competitions, but you can't overwrite a club's history. You cannot just you can add to it, yes, you're a chapter in the book, but you're not the book.
Yeah.
And that's even with a team like Manchester City, who, as a modern fan, we don't know Man City as well as they do. But go back to the 70s in the Summerby years and all this sort of stuff. They are still a big club.
Everton won the league in the 80s. Everton were Premier
Kendall,
League winners in the 80s.
Like Farhad Moshiri is not Everton, a kind of way. And like, as much as he tries to become Everton, he will never be Mr. Everton. That was Howard Kendall.
I will never again argue with anyone the fact that people think football was invented in 1992, because it'll just make me angry, because it just does me nothing that, the Premier League, this is the Premier League's top goal scorers. Well, what about English football's top goal scorer?
Yeah.
Like this whole thing about Alan Shearer being the Premier League's top goal scorer. No. What about Jimmy Greaves being English football's all-time top goal scorer? That Alan Shearer is a footnote in that respect.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's another argument for another podcast.
But it is that point where where as a football fan, as a Liverpool fan, even, like, this is like, whenever these conversations come up about new owners and stuff like this, I'm going in my head now because about John Henry bringing out his kind of like his thoughts on the matter today. So it's fresh in my mind, especially with the news buzz, the excitement about United's new owners. And I'm thinking, like, can you be excited about a state looking at taking over your club?
Well, also with the United's new owners, right? So let's say the Qataris do get in there. They also own Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
So how's that going to factor into the Super League? Because as we said, or into the Champions League. This new league era Champions League.
So is City UAE?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So City's Dubai, Abu Dhabi, they're Emirates, right?
Yeah, and they're owned, and they are in a conglomerate of the City Sports Group, but they have strategically bought clubs in basically areas that they're never going to meet. The closest would be Estac Troy, who plays in League 2, I think. So it's unlikely, unless they get big enough to compete for the Champions League, it's unlikely they'll ever meet in the Champions League. But they have New York City, Melbourne City.
City or Emirates. City are owned by the Emirates. So you've got Qatar, who wants to take over Man United, and Saudi Public Investment Fund, which is state-backed again, it just took over Newcastle. Yes. So at what point do you... Because at the end of the day, European billionaires are a thing of the past. There is no... The money doesn't flow through Europe anymore, and that's obviously through the wonderful idea of whoever thought fucking outsourcing everything to the Middle East and China and everywhere else. Oh, let's just do it there. It's cheaper. Yeah, cheaper, but now we've got no billionaires.
And they won't go into football because it's not sustainable. Yeah.
But at what point do you turn around and go, how many state-backed clubs can we allow? It's going to become a rule. It has to. They have to create a rule or an amendment in.
We had this when the Chinese when the Chinese state gave a directive to all their proverbial oligarchs to buy into football, and now you have a good percentage of English clubs owned by Chinese owners who are now essentially absentees.
Well, the absentees because the money's drying up, because Chinese football had this boom, and then as soon as the Chinese government came in and said, no, you're only allowed 2 foreign players per club, similar to
wasn't that predicated by like their property market absolutely imploding like a fucking neutron star?
Yeah.
And half of those like companies, the conglomerates who own those clubs disappeared.
Yeah, they were property. They were property magnates.
Bubbles always burst. Right? There's a property bubble in Ireland. We had the decline in the early to late 2000s. But there's always a bubble that always bursts. But for the Middle East, it's not a bubble. It's a fucking constant river flow.
Yeah, but they're keeping
oil is incredibly valuable.
That's the difference. Yeah, it's very valuable.
So how long until 10 out of the we had this with the betting company sponsors where 18 of the clubs were sponsored by betting companies, the other 2 weren't. But at what point does it come where you have 10 clubs owned by state-backed investments and then the other 10 aren't? Like, it's getting to that point where how do you just turn around and go, well, we want to buy this club, we'll adhere to all your demands and all your loopholes and all this stuff, we'll jump through any hoop you want, and all of a sudden 5 Qatari clubs are in the Premier League.
But here's my point. Aren't our rules like the Qataris have, say, like bought, like say the Saudis have Newcastle. They can't buy any other club because you can't own other clubs. You can't own more than one club in the same league. They can't meet each other then. Which, by the way, isn't there some issue about the Saudi investment fund doing that because they're investors in Clear Lake Capital, who own Chelsea?
Yes,
they're sort of like 5 or 6% investors in Clear Lake.
However, it's a small enough percentage.
Minority stakeholders.
It's because they're minority they get away with it. If they were a majority, then they wouldn't have got
exactly. So that's my point as well. But then again, like the Qataris, then you've got European competition. So the Qataris own Paris Saint-Germain. If they buy Man U, let's say, right? But what happens when they meet each other in Europe? They can't.
It depends if it's under a different holding company. Doesn't matter.
But that doesn't matter. Like the rules.
That's the loophole.
Is that the loophole? It's different holding companies.
If it's shell companies, that's
this is why they have to establish the links to, like, that's why it's a Saudi public investment fund as opposed to the Saudi prince that owns the club. Like that's how Manchester City are closer to the UAE that Newcastle are to the Saudis, but the link there's a tether still there. And that's, as Dave was saying, like, it's not like a Red Bull situation where Red Bull own both Salzburg and Leipzig, so they can't meet anyway, irregardless of the situation. But they accept that. Well, look, like there was a project at the time. We didn't think Leipzig was going to get that big, or Salzburg would be in the Champions League all the time. This is just
New York Red Bulls.
But that's the way they set it up. And if Red Bull bought into a club in England, let's say they bought Red Bull Leeds, for as daft that sounds. Let's be honest, like Jesse Marsh was getting to that stage with the transfers.
Do you know what though? Because
he was actually currently trying to assemble the entire the USM men's team at Leeds. It's like,
he was going for an audition because Greg Berhalter won't be lasting. Let's be honest.
It was getting decidedly stars and stripey down Leeds way. I tell you that.
But could you imagine Red Bull Wrexham?
But again, it's much of that point. Like it's the difference between being owned by an eccentric billionaire than it is to be owned by a state, and that's like there's something colorful about that, and whimsical about that. Because, like, again, let's use Fulham as an example, right? Because they're owned by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hang on a minute. Right, Arsenal are owned by Stan Kroenke. Now, there's a number of adjectives I would use to describe Stan Kroenke, but colorful and whimsical ain't.
I was not referring to Arsenal in that situation. I was referring to the cokehead who thinks he's a wrestling promoter who owns a club like that. Like, if he was to buy somewhere in France now, that match would just be hilarious. He'll just move. That's different. But like I said, like there's left, and this is where, like, the arguments I've been having with people, especially where the people, like, we know are looking forward to Qatari ownership. Like, you should never be looking forward to Qatari ownership. Never. Like, and again, this is nothing to do, and this is where the waters get muddied, because again, you have a lot of international fans who don't see this as an issue, and I understand that. We all come from different walks of life, and we all have different priorities and criterias. But one thing to always remember about English football is that it's a working class sport. It's always been that. It's never been a middle class sport. Go for cricket or rugby if you want that. For football has always been that. And again, especially in England, the clubs are part of the city. That's why Newcastle United is now lifting up the city of Newcastle. On the other side, that's also why the Saudis have invested in there, so they can gain the love of a deprived area. Don't be surprised. That's why like the Chinese went into the West Bromwich Albion, because then they can get the love and adulation for that.
For fuck's sake, everything's owned by Iranian. It's owned by an Iranian.
But that is at least an Iranian billionaire. That's not state incentivized. That is just he's true, a billionaire. That's fair.
How everyone
that's
is
different.
With that situation. It's
and that's why, like, even why Abramovich had to even sell up with Chelsea, because his links are there to Putin. He couldn't deny them, in a sense. Whether he was like pro or anti-war is outside the issue. Same with Usmanov with Everton. And there's a few others. There was one or two. I think there was a Russian owner for Bournemouth, and he had to sell up to to the American conglomerate that took over. So these things happen. But you can't, the cultural thing about those clubs, even a club as big as Man United, they have culture that's beyond those years. And this is the point I was circling back to, is that you can't override that with just like, here's all the cool players we've signed. Applaud us, the kind of way. And this is where the conflict happens. There's a difference between being owned by, say, a very successful businessman and, say, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, let's say, an owner of a massive company. The difference being owned by him, who is a football fan, who actually enjoys the club, and then it's being owned by a state where you're essentially an arm of propaganda. Those are very, very different things, And as a Liverpool fan, as much as I've heard my fan base like moan their holes off about being owned by John Henry and how he apparently doesn't his fucking wallet is full of cobwebs. I'd still rather have that than be used as have the club be used as something. The club's history be used against something. I mean, again, Arsenal can't really. I know they can't really talk with the whole controversy about the Rwanda deal and so forth, and that's not ideal either. But those are questions that the club supporters will ask the club themselves, because it's their fan base, it's their club, they should care about it, And I think every club that has the question about being ownership should ask the same questions. They should never be celebrating this sort of thing, because like it's a very pathetic thing to celebrate, kind of way.
Yeah, it's much like what Jonathan Liu wrote about in The Guardian. It's like the Qataris would take more from United than the Glazers ever could.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that rings true.
Yeah, it is.
And I think sorry, go.
Sorry, I was going to say, there's still, as a football fan, as a child, you still have the romantic part of it. You still want to fall in love with your club. You don't want to fall in love. You don't fall in love with the owners. Like, I don't care who the owners were of Liverpool in the 90s. I fell in love with fucking Steve McManaman, John Barnes, whoever's your favorite player at the time, Michael Owen. Those are the players you fall in love with. Fucking Emil Heskey. I didn't give a shit who was signing his contracts. You know what I mean? That should always be the case. It should never have to be a conversation of like, who's buying the club this time. It's like, no one should care. It goes back to that FIFA movie of like, I don't care about the football admins. Let me see the movie about Pele or Maradona. Like, those are the heroes that you want to fucking follow, But it's a very depressing conversation to be having about football at the moment, isn't it? Like,
so I was just reading through the different owners of Premier League clubs, and there's some really funny footnotes in who owns the actual club. So technically, Chelsea are owned by the Guggenheim Group, right? Who own the LA Dodgers?
Yes.
Which is part of the Guggenheim Group is Magic Johnson. That's quite an interesting link, right? Mm-hmm. So technically, the LA Dodgers own.
Wait a minute, aren't Chelsea owned by Clear Lake Capital or Clearwater Capital or whatever?
There's 4 different owners, all in the same percentage. So there's Mark Walter, Hans-Jörg Weiss, Todd Bowley, and then Clear Lake. They're the official owners of Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah, but but in terms of investment, what's the percentage there? Yeah, because I know Todd Bowley is like their point man.
Well, he's only co-chairman.
Yeah, that's but he's their sort of point man. He's like the fucking teddy bear that gets strapped in front of the tank to soak up all the fucking bullets.
He's the Hollywood face, right?
Yeah.
So Hans-Jörg Weiss is just basically a billionaire investor in Chelsea. So he owns a few companies. He's the co-owner of Chelsea, this guy.
Yeah.
But it's Mark Walter who is the chairman executive.
I keep thinking you're going to say Mark Wahlberg there, and I keep going, oh my God, what?
That would be hilarious.
That would be utterly fucking hilarious. But here's the thing, right?
Pride of Chelsea FC, huh? Yeah. What are you going to do?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, he's getting all the players up at 4 a.m. to fucking do their prayers and take their vitamins. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing about Chelsea, right? Because you said about Chelsea, right? So they're not owned by investors and hedge funds, right? So this is what puts their the winter splurge in such dramatic thing. Like, these must be the most pain-resistant investors and hedge funds I have ever seen. Hedge funds, this is other people's money that they're doing this with. This isn't the eccentric billionaire happy to flush 60 million quid a year down the toilet.
You would think, right? But the Guggenheim Partners Group, right, who own Chelsea, have $325 billion in assets, right? So they have 325 billion. That's just 1/4 of who own Chelsea. Then you've got the other billionaires on top of that. So Chelsea are pretty much unlimited here, because the Dodgers franchise that they own, they bought for $2 billion, right? Way back, mid 2010s or whatever. So their merchandise sales alone cover their cost of that place. Chelsea will run itself effectively with these guys in charge, right? But I want to take you to a little footnote of West Ham.
The Dildo Brothers.
The Daily Sport is listed as the owner.
The fuck out of here.
West Ham. So
Daily Sport.
The source of wealth for West Ham United is listed as the Daily Sport.
Daily Sport. A year ago, 10 years ago, the lottery made me a millionaire, and now I suck off dogs for quavers. Paper.
Yeah. Their main source of it, one of their main
helped me
sources
track
of
down
income.
the man who shot down my chimney. Paper.
Yeah. The Daily Sport and the Sunday
I
Sport
shoved 9 cream eggs up my arse.
Yeah.
That I fucked the Greg's pasty and burnt my cock off.
Has funded West Ham United.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
I mean, it's also quite strange to know that how many American sports teams are the main income generators for Chelsea. So they have listed here that the LA Dodgers and the investment consortium themselves and the LA Dodgers are income sources for Chelsea. So they're using the income streams from the Dodgers to fund Chelsea. It's the same for Leeds United with the 49ers. So San Francisco 49ers fund Leeds, Jacksonville Jaguars, as we said, Fulham. We all know Stan Kroenke.
Yeah, he owns the Rams aren't a revenue stream for Arsenal.
No,
we don't need it.
They're not down there.
But he does wholly own them.
Bournemouth, Las Vegas Golden Knights.
Well,
Las Vegas Golden Knights are Bournemouth's income stream. And then the last one is Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously Manchester United. Yeah, so the Vegas Golden Knights. Bournemouth is owned by William P. Bill Foley.
Bill Foley?
William P. Bill Foley II, who owns the Las Vegas Golden Knights. He now owns Bournemouth, obviously take over with Michael B. Jordan and all that stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars fund Fulham, and then you have the Vegas Golden Knights funding Bournemouth. So it's an interesting take on, like, when you really look into who owns what. It's crazy to think that there's American franchises from, baseball and NFL who fund Premier League clubs.
Yeah, it is interesting, and again, it goes down to how, like, those kind of principal owners, like, they have these kind of essentially these clubs are kind of essentially part of their portfolios for all intents and purposes, and again, not necessarily kind of seen as investments. It's kind of seen as their own kind of like hype, like 4D chess level of sport. It's like, can we beat the Cronkies in sports ball? Damn right we can, and let's have a good laugh about it around a scotch. And that's again, that's a layer to, like, being like, there's no politics in that. That's just pure unadulterated money.
What makes it worse? City are owned 1% owned by China Media Capital. Yeah, and they're obviously Abu Dhabi Group, state owned, and then the Silver Lake, whatever that is, an American investor. Clear Lake, similar to Clear Lake at Chelsea, it's just a Silver Lake at Man City. They own like tons of they own New Zealand rugby, funnily enough. But yeah, it's when it all comes down to it, how many of these are going to be run by Middle Eastern states or investors in the next 10 to 20 years?
Like I said, it's gone that way already. The Premier League have let them in already. They were happy to take as much business as they wanted. back in a time where like the height of a business was like someone selling Tim Sherwood for £3 million and scoffing at how inflated that fee was. And now you're at the stage where like if you're selling someone for 3 million, you're kind of considered to be bad business. So like it's the name of the game, I suppose. But again, that's only like one kind of like issue we've had in sport. Like that's only in the Premier League. Two other big stories dropped while we were away, lads, which was we'll start with Juve because that was the oldest one of the lots.
Okay.
So when we talked a bit about Juve the last time, and now we kind of like have seen the dust settle on it. And I mean, not to say that this has been coming for Juventus, but they've had a checkered past when it comes to playing by the rules.
Yeah, they have indeed.
As many have done in the past. But like this conversation, this ties in with a little bit of the European Super League because there is a 1-to-1 correlation with Juventus constantly beating the Super League drum, with also them being in massive fucking trouble, whether it be financially or sporting wise. And their solution is essentially to go, I don't like playing in this league. Let's just make my own league. And how about what if I were to make my own league and keep winning my own league and winning all the prize money of my own league? Yes, I think that's a smashing idea. And all the competitors in my league, the Juventus league, let's invite Barcelona and let's call it the Barcelona League. And you get the idea. But again, it's quite amusing to me that the height of the hubris is to hide our mistakes and cover and fuck ups by basically taking the ball literally and going home and making your own ball team. Like it's your own ball sport essentially is very, very amusing. But not again, we're not kicking a club while they're down here. Like it's the players don't exactly have a say in this. But
oh no, I'm not kicking the. Yeah. I am going to kick the club when they're down. They've been through this before, got relegated, came back up, and they continue to make the same fucking mistakes twice. As far as Juve are concerned, they can go insolvent. I couldn't care less whether they're European giants or whether they're a historic club or any of this shite. If they've done it again, fuck them. They can go insolvent. They can cease to exist. I could care less. They're just ruining football and being part of the problem rather than helping solve it.
But it is somewhat refreshing to see a league actually enforce the rule, especially against what is perceived often to be the biggest club in the league, at least in recent history. They can boast that considering the basket cases around them. But yeah, like it's refreshing to see that. And again, it shows you that it actually can be done. You can actually slap the wrist of your biggest draw, if you will, in Juventus. Again, as Neil would probably say, like it's probably making the league worse in quality, but is that worth enforcing the rules and making sure these teams don't get away with essentially murder? You know, because I think it is like out of this, you are getting one of the best Napoli teams you've ever seen.
Yeah, so, I think so. But I also think that the fact that the Juve contagion might spread to the rest of the league, which is the reason why they were slapped so quickly, you know, in that, like, if City get relegated, it's pretty much only going to affect City, you know. That's pretty much it. The Qataris and the Saudis who own Newcastle and whoever the Qataris buy, maybe Manchester United, they'll make sure to not make the same fuck ups, but it won't affect how they operate. It won't affect what they're doing. You know, it'll only really affect City. What Juve are doing now, however, will spread.
Yeah,
you know.
They've always had that relationship with loans, haven't they? Yeah. They've always used
it's embedded. It's embedded in Serie A,
and also
an institution.
It might go to the players as well, because the players were complicit in the salary deductions, because it has been revealed that they knew full well that the club were publicly saying all the players have given up 4 months of their salaries, but then they were all told like we've seen the WhatsApp messages flying around going, they're all WhatsApped. Don't say this to anybody, but we'll find you'll only be losing 1 month, and we'll find a way to give you the other 3. Like, you will get your money. Don't say this to anybody. And which is why they think why they know that there's an insider, because you know all this stuff keeps getting leaked out. So that's the thing. I think the Juve is slightly different in that what Juve were doing is, oh my god, this is awful. This is absolutely awful. This has to be dealt with. And there might be criminal proceedings. There is criminal proceedings going to be coming out of this. So I think it's slightly different. It's still good to see, like, fuck them. You know, the cheating bastards. And it's hilarious to see how much of this was all kickstarted not by a pandemic, but by them signing Ronaldo.
Yeah. Ronaldo
Like,
is the bad penny, isn't he? Like
Ronaldo was the catalyst
first.
for all of this. Ronaldo was, you know, yeah, he's the poison pellet in with the cat in the box, and we lifted the lid. Oh no, it's dead.
Yeah. Yep.
And
it's very dead. Jesus.
Yeah, it's very dead. And the poison pellet, just it's Ronaldo, because the amount of money he drained out of that club, which then was exacerbated by the pandemic. But had they not signed Ronaldo, they would have actually been okay. Well, I mean, it would have been bad, but it wouldn't have been.
It would have survived. Yeah.
But it is so absurd that they will blame the likes of the Premier League for like, you're stealing our money. It's like, you've given all your money to a fucking washed up superstar. Like, don't blame us for that. Like, we took on this washed up superstar for a couple of years. You're welcome, by the way. I'm just saying. But yeah, like that was one aspect, and obviously like a 15 point deduction at least is a proper punishment as well. Like, and again, this could be the first of a few, because this will have now expanded. Like, you've now got a bloodhound on your tail, and you're looking for more like in infractions like this. So it might not be the end. Like, they could get another one next year or the year after, whenever they start finding more of this. And like, because they were having a particularly bad season by their own account, it's not looking like they're going to get anything close to Europe. Like, I mean, they might get the Conference League if they're lucky, but I think Juventus would be the inner snob of the of the Juventus board would go, we'd rather not be in the Conference League. Although I do find the idea of Juventus having to travel to the likes of Tala Stadium or Daily Park, quite frankly, hilarious. Could you imagine that, Dave? Like, you welcome Juventus to Easter Road. Like, that'd be fucking great, wouldn't it?
First of all, Hibs have to get into that competition. Never mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Juventus playing there. You know what I mean? But
Sean Maloney loafing Massimo Allegri for the crack, like.
Sean Maloney's at Wigan now, fucking playing his straight.
True, actually, he is. I forgot that.
But fucking Lee Johnson swabbing his way through the fucking tunnels. Jesus Christ.
They're shaking hands with Allegri, going like, I know it's tough like this. When I was at Yeovil Town, it was.
It's we're in a bit of an upswing. Happy days. Good couple of results. We're in fourth now, so we're getting there. But
what we're saying is, what you're saying is, there's a chance, Dave.
There's a chance.
There's a chance you're going to get Juventus a decent row. Well, mark your calendar, lads. You're going to get Juventus a decent row. This is going to happen.
Just purely for the gate receipts, man. That's all.
We'll put up as an extra stand. It's grand. We'll get the few bob out of it.
Sell the ground out.
Yeah, why not?
Parade Sammy Khedira around the ground before it happens.
Yeah, it's like introduce Adrian Rabiot to the deep fried Mars bar. He'll love that. He'll have great fun with that.
Moise Keane visits the castle.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be nice. No, a nice photo op for everybody.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think as far as City go, it'll be a few years before we see anything. It'll be a few years, few seasons before we see any outcome or any. I don't think they'll be as swift as you'd expect. I think it'll fucking drag on for 4 years, 5 years. I don't want it to be. I want it to be fucking dealt with in a quick and timely manner. But it's the FA. It's
what I would personally hope is that the scandal does have like a day by day account. Like, it'd be nice to have an audit trail. Kind of like what's happening with Barcelona at the moment.
They were just sold to Spotify. It's cool.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Drake will rescue them in the in a courtroom drama scene. He'll auto tune his way to victory. No, so there's like, if one scandal wasn't bad enough for Barcelona with the whole again, the financial insolvency, if you will, and the levers and all this sort of stuff, basically using these levers as a sort of a defibrillator to keep the club alive.
Here, La Liga were held to ransom. They can't lose Barcelona as a brand. They cannot afford to lose anything from that league, because the league is dog shit as it is at the minute. Barcelona have a big enough income stream that if they were to go defunct, La Liga would be so screwed.
Barcelona don't have any fucking money. Right. the La Liga can't really lose the brand of Barcelona, even shorn of their talisman, the talisman Messi.
It's El Clasico, man. They'll sell that around the world because there's countries
It's the
where,
one of the few matches that actually sell. Bar outside the
yeah,
Madrid
they'll
derby.
sell that globally. Like El
But
Clasico is what La Liga sells to the world for
yeah,
Spanish
but my
football.
my point as well is that like you can't, but you can't also allow them to just do what they want. Like they're,
I know, it's a fine line, it's a gray area, but
it's actually it's a fine line that Javier Tebas is pissing all over, and fair fucks to him because he don't give a fuck. He is blazing his one man trail. He is dirty harrying the living bollocks out of the Catalonians, and he is loving every second of it. You know, he's literally walked up to the fucking Spotify Camp Nou. Um, it's gone. Do you feel fucking lucky, pugs? I don't know what that is in Spanish. Uh, so yeah, it's I quite like it. This while you said about the Serie A, oh, I like seeing a league enforce its rules. I really love watching La Liga enforce its rules because my God, they don't give a living fuck. And it's just wonderful. It's absolutely brilliant to see. But yeah, the freshest scandal on Barcelona recently broke, I think a few days ago. We were recording this on the 20th. This broke on the 16th.
hit me.
So 15th, whichever. Yeah. That they were apparently paying off referees. Or
So
more
match fixing.
yeah, that more precisely they're being investigated for payments totaling 1.4 million euros to a company owned by Jose Maria Enrique Negreira, who was at the time of these payments vice president of the Spanish Football Refereeing Committee. So that's not good.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
That's not fucking good.
Jesus
So
Christ.
every single sports council in along with every single sports journalist in the country is circling this like a fucking hungry vulture. This is awful. So yeah, the Spanish FA are massively fucking investigating this. So there was 3 payments
Totaling 7 million euros paid as consultancy fees for match reports or scouting reports, which it was disguised as, and also as they paid 7 million basically for referees to have some pity on them and just try and sway the game their way effectively.
Yeah, so they're basically stating that they were for technical reports and they were completed with great professionalism. Hilariously, they're trying to go the route. Bartomeu went the route with saying that he only ever dealt with Enrique Negreira's son and claimed to not have been aware that he himself was.
That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Proxy blame doesn't work. Oh, I didn't do it like indirect, like I wasn't directly involved, therefore I can't be. It doesn't work anymore. That type of shit doesn't work. But the greatest comment I've seen on this is, why did no one think this was a bad idea? Like this guy turns around and one of the journalists goes, why did no one think this was a bad idea? Like, why did nobody turn around and go, yeah, let's not pay off the referees with millions of euros? Like, who the fuck sat down and goes, we could do it doing? We could do it just kind of working our way up the league, but let's pay off the referees.
So, well, they weren't paying off the referees so much in that they were paying for reports on the referees. So they were getting detailed background. This is apparently what was happening. They're getting detailed background on each individual referee and official, which the managers would then use to instruct their players on how best to behave towards them to influence them. Which, by the way,
manipulation. I like it.
It still isn't good. This is still not good.
No, it's not. It's fucking not.
It's
the fine way of influencing.
Yeah, it's a
result. It still influences the game.
Yeah,
but it's still pretty damning, to be honest. Given that Barcelona are currently top of La Liga.
But I think you can probably blame the like of Real Madrid being burnt out and Atletico like well and truly collapsing this season as well on that. Like again, as you said, if Barcelona weren't in this league would be pretty tragic, relatively speaking. Again, this is the same league that's looking at Valencia getting relegated this year, and the likes of a Getafe or an
There's no
Osasuna.
money. There's no money in Spanish football. These clubs are going down because they're just debt ridden. Nearly every club is debt ridden in that league.
Yeah.
There's just no money in Spanish football, and there hasn't been for years. It's a
And
dying
again, they're
league.
blaming that on the Premier League, but I would more argue the case that like you haven't sold yourself enough. You've spent the years essentially only having two selling points to your league, which is Messi, Ronaldo, and El Clasico. You never built up the rest of the league. Like as absurd as it sounds, in the marketplace, people are more willing to watch, like let's just say Wolves versus Brighton as opposed to mid-table like Sevilla versus Valencia, which would be a cracking game. This would be fun in a even in a Europa League context, let's say. But no one will watch it as a La Liga like product because, like, as I said, the production and quality is not there. And even then, just the marketing, you didn't market these games, but in the same way that Ligue 1 doesn't market their games at all. Like in a Ligue 1 sense, there's only three clubs, which is Lyon, Marseille, and PSG, and that's it. There's no one else that really exists in that sense.
Well, the thing that's different about them is like French football has a great like community culture. Like Saint Etienne will sell out their stadium because the whole town turns out to watch the team. Like the Lyon and Marseille, the whole they have massive fan bases because they embrace the city itself. They become part of it. So French football is fine because they'll always have their fan base. They're not going anywhere. German football is the same. German football is fan. Almost all the clubs are fan owned anyway. So the fans have a vested interest in the club. So they always will turn out. The gate sales will always sell out. The money will always be there. In Spain, there's two clubs. Like I've never met a Getafe season ticket holder. I've never met like, anyone who supports anyone other than the big two. And when you see these games like broadcast on television, some of the Serie A clubs are the same, the likes of Udinese and the lower Serie A clubs. The stadiums are empty. There's 3,000 people, if any, in these grounds. Most of the Liga clubs, apart from the big two, the Serie A clubs, apart from the top six, all these clubs, if you look at the televised games, like even against the big clubs like Milan and things like that, Crotone I watched the Crotone game against Milan. There's about 500 people on the ground. The money's just not there in these leagues. I mean, France is very lucky because they have the attendances, they have the fan base. Germany's the same, but those two leagues are in a oddly similar kind of situation where there's just no interest. There's no interest at all.
Yeah.
But it's also fueled by like this all came out just fueled by greed as well at the top. So they're not content with like their kind of position atop the pyramid. It's like the greed for more. And the whole refereeing scandal came out as about greed because they stopped these payments in 2018 when their finances hit the skids, when they opened the books and realized that was basically a screaming black hole where there should be accounts. And that was it. It's like, what the fuck? But when they cut the payment, there was a reaction because it was also the year that Negreira left the CTA, the company that they were paying. And when he did, there was a reaction. And he was demanding 200 grand in outstanding payments and turned around to Barcelona and went, the scandal would not be good for the club, and threatening to reveal the irregularities he saw. Now, he never went followed through with this. But the thing is, where people are asking, what irregularities did he see? That's the question. Well, a lot of the other questions as well. There's so many just don't fit. Like, what were they paying for? Like, they said that they were paying for like reports. This is what they said, right? They said that they were paying for reports on decisions to ensure neutrality. What the fuck does neutrality mean, though? How do you buy neutrality? I think one Spanish writer wrote 7 million euros for neutrality. I'd hate to see what they charge to be biased.
It's completely contradicting term of let's buy no, you can't buy neutrality. You're paying to influence a game of football, and in my eyes, it's a very shaded way of match fixing.
If you have to pay for neutrality,
you're not neutral.
What does that say about you? Like, it's hilarious. Like,
yeah, and I mean,
it's crazy. Like, were they being scammed? Like, what the hell's going on? Like,
Barcelona have gone from scandal to scandal to scandal to scandal. Then someone brought up the Neymar scandal from his signing from it was Santos.
Yeah.
Where they basically paid his dad like most of the transfer fee and only paid the club like 5.5 million for him. And they gave his dad like the rest of the tens of millions that they owed.
And that's old news relatively to
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Then
That's
you
how
had
absurd that is. That should still be news. That should still be talked about.
Juan Laporta, the
Yeah.
scandal surrounding him, Bartomeu scandal around all these guys, PK and the Supercopa de España.
Yes, Jesus, of course.
You know, and just the general Barcelona, La Liga Santander, and the ordinary justice system is one of the articles that's titled like that. But yeah,
What's funny that's been quoted about the whole refereeing scandal around Barcelona is that the other clubs haven't really uttered a word about it. Now, normally they're very quick to whinge about any kind of scandal involving the top two or any of the others.
because they used
But,
to.
yeah, but the thing is that like they haven't said a word about this, you know?
Because they probably think, what's the point?
Yeah, even the president of the federation that's like hasn't said a word about it. So you're thinking,
What's the
hang
point?
on,
Like,
I'm like, right, even if everything was on the level, and I really don't see how it possibly could be, it was still a club, still like the vice president of a refereeing association being paid 7 million euros by a club. I was like,
that alone, that
that's
alone,
right there, like that's just terrible. So like, this is crazy. This is insane. Like I can't believe it.
It's always
But I think
absurd.
they'll probably go on and wait. They're probably going to win La Liga. You know,
it's a member-owned club as well. It's one of the few clubs in the world that's owned by its club members.
Yeah, but yeah, they're probably going to win La Liga, and fuck it, you know. That's in the end, that's all that matters.
Exactly, and they only had to pay what, like 3 million really to get the neutrality. So that's it down costs. That's a start, isn't it? You know,
Filthy neutrals.
Yeah, got the you can't trust them. You don't know where to.
Can't trust neutrals. That's it. You know.
Yeah, you can't
that's why you have to bribe them.
But while we're on the conversation of Europe, the Champions League is back up and running. As we're week late to the conversation, but we might as well pick it up here because it's well poised in most of the competitions, really. If we're starting off with the Champions League, we already have a few matches started. Overall, it's not looking good for the English clubs, actually, at the moment, because Spurs and Chelsea are both 1-0 down in their respective ties. You've got Chelsea, who got rather punch drunk against Dortmund and got caught by a good counter attack. But the game is still relatively well poised, if you want to call it that. You've got Bayern Munich, or rather Spurs, who got beaten basically by Milan 1-0. And I watched this match. I'm not sure how they lost 1-0. It should have been 5, to be honest. But it's the story of Spurs this season. They kind of bluffed their way through a bad game, you know. And I'd love to know how they kind of nick a living like this, because geez, I could do this with my life, to be honest.
Fucking fossil football, man. They're absolutely terrible. I would love to just, you know, put the boot in on Spurs, but I'm an Arsenal fan, so it's kind of it's not that it's not against the rules, but it's a tale as old as time. Yeah, but they're fucking terrible. They're so bad. Like the game against Milan was just atrocious. Like, Forster is awful. he is really bad. Like, he is massively deteriorated skill wise. He's terrible.
Happens with age. He's just getting too old.
That's it. Like, he shouldn't be reacting to. I think somebody fucking, I can't remember who said. Somebody said that's like, fuck Foster. Like, he shouldn't be reacting to shots. He should be reacting to YouTube videos. And now they want Ben Foster. He's already reacting to YouTube videos.
That's why he's retired.
Ben Foster has his own podcast.
Yeah, the Fozcast.
To be honest,
he's actually had a number of them.
Phenomenal. I love listening to that.
Yeah,
but
he's really good.
And he has it. Like, everyone loves Ben Foster. There's no one person who doesn't bloody love Ben Foster. Just as a person.
In fairness, like, when it comes to ex-footballers putting themselves about after their careers, he's done it the right way, as opposed to say talk sport fucking guest, you know. It's like
he's done it like crowd,
going like, I don't know why I don't like these things. It's like, just go home, man. Like, it's please.
Yeah, rather than becoming like a kind of nepo baby pundit like everybody else, you know.
It's like Peter Crouch. Peter Crouch did it the right way as well with his book and kind of doing his own thing. And
yeah,
that's it. Sort of like, you don't want to be like Tim Sherwood, like shiting on about how bad Pedro Porro was at Benfica. when he never played for Benfica.
He played for Sporting. Yeah.
Yeah, he played for Sporting. And I was like, well, he's
No. In fairness, I have a soft spot for Tim.
He did actually say this. Like, oh, well, Pedro Porro, he wasn't any good for Benfica. Why are Spurs buying him or playing him? And I was like, well, Tim, you're actually technically correct there. He wasn't any good at Benfica. You're technically correct. He never played.
The best kind of correct, as we know. In fairness, now I will always have a soft spot for Tim. Like he was one of the first memes of our group. In fairness, like
yeah, he's one of the first clown cars of our fucking mean clown cars of our WhatsApp.
But not even that, but like his best moment ever on television, and it's one that people have barely seen because it was on the Premier League, like it's specific field, was the verbal smackdown he got from Melissa Reddy. That was fucking beautiful. I'll have to track it down because it's genuinely like it is like a man talking shit about football, like corrected by a woman who actually knows what the fuck she's talking about. It's just like that's a quality in football. That is. This is like it's like I think he was talking about Arsenal, and we all know he's a secret Arsenal fan. Like that was a kind of
Agent Sherwood.
Agent Sherwood, yeah, as we call him. But like he's all like, well, they haven't won any cups, You always judge a competition, a club by its cups, and he goes, Melissa just goes, okay, bitch.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer. Here's what football actually is, right? Again, he should know this. He won the Premier League, the dozy cunt, but however. But yeah, like go back to the conversation, like it's well poised for some aspect. The other match that we didn't talk about there as well was PSG Munich, and again, the most one-sided 1-0 I've ever seen. Where like PSG, I believe, didn't have any shots on target the entire first half. And folks, it is like if you're looking for the next dumpster fire, I would refer to you to PSG because it's kicking off spectacularly over there. Namely because they were 2-0 up against Lille, if I remember correctly, only to end up losing the game 4-2. They did a bit of Aston Villa on it, but the best thing about it was that, as we probably saw a glimpse of it ourselves over the week, was the sporting director Luis Campos doing who did that beforehand? It was in the either the Championship or the Premier League who did that the same way. Basically came down from the stands and thought he could manage a team himself. Who the fuck was it? Don't tip my tongue. It happened years ago, but it's gone on my mind now. It's really annoying me. But basically, the sporting director basically came down to the touchline and started like suggesting tactics to the actual manager. Like it's just like this is beautiful. This is great. Because again, every year that PSG don't win the Champions League boils their piss to unimaginable levels. Because like again, it's one of the greatest vanity projects in history to have a team amassed of the biggest names in the world, and Marco Verratti's in there somewhere as well. But you're bringing all these players together, and you still can't win the Champions League. It's just there's something wonderful about that to me. It's like the snake eating itself, But even then, like it's still only 1-0, and Munich should have put them away, which probably also kind of suggests that Munich have issues too. But moving on to the matches that we're going to have this week, the one that really stands out the most would be Liverpool Real Madrid, which is the rematch from the last year's final. And again, like this is like at the time of the final, it's two teams in their kind of their primes having big seasons, and the culmination of both of them. And they're weird enough, like Liverpool and Real kind of find themselves in the same situation where they're both teams that are really worn out, modernized in the process of modernizing, if you will, of they're not fully rebuilt, but they are rebuilding, if you will. So it's very hard to tell which team is actually in the better situation, considering Liverpool had a good run at the moment, but that's after coming like back-to-back 3-0 losses and an FA Cup exit, and then Real Madrid can't seem to chain a couple of results together themselves. It's a really well-poised match in that sense, because you've got two really fought teams together. It
is a well-poised match, particularly that Real are going to go there with nobody really in midfield.
Yeah, their midfield is quite crocked.
Because both Cruz and Tchouaméni are sick. With whatever the fuck they are. So pretty much, I think it depends on who they're going to play in midfield. They'll obviously probably play Camavinga.
Yeah,
He's a not a bad player.
He's quite good, actually, as I understand. Yes.
Yes. So, but it's just weird to see what's going on with them. But yeah, they're 8 adrift in La Liga. They're not going to win it. Yeah, it's crazy. So like, but then again, like it's Real Madrid. It's Real Madrid in the Champions League. Like, absolutely cannot write them off. Which is funny because that's exactly what people say about Liverpool as well.
It's the immovable force, immovable object type of equation, isn't it? And again, it's around the 16s, like you bastards.
Basically, yeah, that's the thing. Like it's 2 clubs who have trump cards in the Champions League. It's like, all right, who draws their card first? That's it.
It's in a weird way when you get a round of 16 draw like that, when one of those perennial kind of like favorites has gone early, that opens the door out for an unlikely winner. So like out of all the teams, but we mentioned Napoli earlier on, like so they have a reasonable draw against Frankfurt, again another kind of proverbial blue chip team.
Frankfurt are gonna get fucking hammered.
Oh, they will. I
mean they won the Europa League, fair enough. But
yeah, and they got out of the group as well, Spurs group, which is
but this is as far as they go. Napoli are going to absolutely hose them.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, do we recognize Napoli as potentially the favorite for the Champions League based on form alone?
I had them. I had them down as favorites.
I don't have them down as favorites because of, regardless of how well you're doing in the league, the Champions League is just unpredictable. You can't really predict it as well as you think.
Can be beaten on the day, can't you?
I understand that completely, but like if at the beginning of this, going to my head, who was I putting money on?
Napoli.
I was putting my money on Napoli. So all right, fine. They may not be the favorites, like odds wise, but my money is on Napoli.
Like they're still playing the best football in Europe, realistically. Like if you wanted to put the 2 form teams before the World Cup, you would have had Arsenal Napoli. You would have put them 2 together and have like a pure football match. Like so, like even in that aspect, you'd still put your money on them. There will still somebody will probably still emerge from the quarterfinals, but again, all the elites are kind of have a critical flaw in them at the minute. Even Munich are stumbling in a domestic sense. I mean, they're fighting Dortmund and Union Berlin for the title, which is absurd.
They've also got quite issues between fining their current number 1 and club captain 1.4 million euros for an interview he gave after breaking his leg skiing in the middle of a season. So we might talk about that one in a later cast.
It seems so benign compared to everything else, doesn't it? It's just like,
yeah, exactly. Him absolutely putting his entire club on hold for sacking his goalkeeping coach.
Yeah.
Gotta love the commitment.
Yeah. Again, we always ask the question, like, because you have such a curious draw this time, and Man City, I've noticed getting a reasonable draw against Leipzig. Yeah, funny how that works, isn't it? But well, like again, like this is another chance of them to win the whole lot. And again, I just don't see it happening for them this year. I don't know what it is.
See it happening.
Do we think Man City have actually got worse since they signed Haaland?
Yep.
Has there been enough data points to say that has been an issue?
Can we park that debate for another time? Because that will go on.
Yes.
I could talk about that for another 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can park that one
on the next week's edition of the football podcast. Yes.
And I'll put my last point in that I just found out. Well, I only realized now and found out now that Hector Bellerin half owns fucking Forest Green Rovers. When did that happen?
I must have missed that one somehow.
Because if you couldn't love Hecky Bell anymore.
He half owns Forest Green Rovers.
Damn those vegans.
Vegans are what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those vegans. Yeah. There you go. Right. Well, look, I think we've covered as much as we can in this edition of the football podcast. So we're going to be back in a couple of weeks where no doubt we'll have more developments on the situation.
Hashtag relegate Man City. Yep.
Yeah, relegate. Again, we are still in the
trending.
midst of Operation Anyone But Man City, and I hope you two, you at home are feeling the same way as us, unless you're a Man City fan.
MCFC for League Two.
Yeah,
Boosh.
exactly.
Yes, I will travel to Tranmere to support Tranmere against Man
Yeah.
City.
That would be great. Actually, you make it sound so enticing.
Who doesn't want to go to Stevenage on a Tuesday night to watch them play City?
It will be quite something to see Pep in his in his cashmere cardigan having to talk it up with like fucking what's the big guy's name? Evans, what was the guy's name? Steve Evans, isn't it? I think he's with Rotherham or someone like that. It's a big chunky guy who just like came on a flip flops for no reason. It's like having to do like meetings with him, let's say, and other people. You know, it's just like talking about their days and their kids, and Pep's going like, yes, but there's the Sinachia and this and Trequartista. This is how it's done. Just try still 2 years after the fact trying to justify Bernardo Silva at left back as a tactical masterclass. It's like, nah, mate, come on. You're not fooling anyone, not even
That's
these
the thing,
cunts.
like their injury list would be 10 times worse than League Two, to be fair. They get fucking rammed.
46 games, the Johnson Payne Trophy,
Papa John's trophy, Bill.
Papa John's, yes, of course. And the
Get
League
that
Cup
meat
and the
feast
FA
pizza
Cup.
down, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just man.
Do you know that was a promotion a few weeks ago that if you won the Papa John's trophy and Football Manager sent in the proof, they give you a free pizza.
Nice. Love it. I love it.
Awesome.
That
was a legit
any other
promotion,
incentive
like.
you need. Like take the relegation and get the pizza. That's what you want, lads. Come on.
I tried, but I couldn't win it. So
no, it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. In
yeah.
any case, guys, we're going to leave it for this edition. I hope you've all enjoyed the long form, free flowing conversation we're having now on the podcast. But we'll be doing this every 2 weeks, and we'll keep you posted on what happens. I'm sure you'll know by now, but we're the ones giving you the banter to go with. So hopefully you've enjoyed. But until then, we'll see you for the next edition, because all of that was Liquid Football.
Woo! Hashtag.
Indeed.